Own chicken that was just approved for sale in the U.S. could be headed to your dinner plate. Devin Dwyer has the details. Good morning, Devin.
Hey, good morning, George. Americans ate 75 billion pounds of red meat and chicken last year. But what if some of that meat was not raised on farms, but instead of high-tech facilities? Scientists say that could be good for the environment and your health, and soon it could be on menus and store shelves.
This morning, the USDA has approved cell-cultivated meat to be sold to the public for the first time.
So that's where it all starts, just a few cells.
2 cultivated meat producers now getting the green light to begin commercially selling their chicken, not raised on a farm, but in a facility. The meat is grown using real animal cells in large bioreactors fed with nutrients. I recently got a tour of California-based Upside Foods, the nation's first and largest cultivated meat producer.
You're making chicken in there.
Yeah, so if you look at this is approximately a 200+ liter tank. And we take cells from a chicken or an egg. It takes 2 weeks to grow the equivalent of 1 chicken, 1,000 chickens, or 100,000 chickens.
So you're saying in this factory you can make more meat faster and cleaner than an average farmer?
Well, ultimately, yes.
The company says cell-cultivated meat could help feed the world's booming population using a fraction of the land and water of animal farming and help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Many experts say more study is needed.
I got to try this cell-cultivated chicken at the facility in California, guys. I got to say the texture was a little bit different, but it did taste like chicken. The company says they hope to get it on restaurant menus in the next few weeks, then maybe on store shelves in the next 5 years, and dozens of startup companies are getting in on the game, guys.
You mentioned the texture, so is it more like tofu?
You know, George, it was pretty close to chicken, but maybe a little bit rubberier. You have to give it a try for yourself. A restaurant in California is going to roll it out next month.
Would you guys try it?
I think I would. I do like the reduction in animal cruelty, but we'll see.
Swiss or American, cheese shares one major element, milk from an animal. But that could soon be changing as more companies look to shred the rule book in the lab. CBS's Tina Kraus reports from London.
People have been churning out cheese for thousands of years with one key ingredient, milk from an animal, often a cow. But scientists inside this London laboratory are trying to reinvent the wheel by ditching the dairy.
This is the lab that looks at making cheese melt, stretch, and ooze like traditional dairy.
Yvonne Nagaraja is the CEO of Better Dairy and says his company is duplicating centuries-old cheese recipes with 21st century technology.
The only difference in our case is that there is no cow involved and it's sustainable.
Chief Scientific Officer David Nunn explains the secret behind their lab-grown cheese.
What we're doing is producing an essential cheese protein called casein using precision fermentation.
That protein is crafted into curds and mixed with a variety of natural flavors to create a range of cheese types.
That is undifferentiated from the cheese that you enjoy every day with a nice slice of bread.
Better Dairy is not alone. Several other startups are looking to revolutionize the cheese aisle. And more than a dozen companies are making meat in the lab by cultivating animal cells and then growing them. 2 U.S. companies have received federal approval, but there's been pushback, with Florida and Alabama banning the sale of lab-grown meat. Better Dairy is aiming to get governments to approve their process in the next 3 years.
Our benchmark of success is traditional cheese. We want products that taste like the original that comes from a cow.
Engineers are working to expand production to eventually sell aged cheese that tastes like a chip off the old block. Tina Kraus.
Grocery store, buy, a cut of fish, you're buying a very small portion of the animal and you're leaving behind, or you're not seeing a whole bunch of other things. So instead of relying on an animal to grow cells and divide cells and proliferate to the point where we can harvest a piece of tissue, we're trying to do that in a flask, in an in vitro system, so that we don't need to rely on a whole animal to produce just a small piece of tissue.
I never thought about cellular agriculture being a research theme in my lab in a Cummings School of Medicine. The main focus of our lab is to purify protein and characterize its function. Then you can use it to produce antibodies, new antibiotics and drugs. CAM has this idea that the methodology that we have been using and perfecting over the years is a good segue into cellular agriculture. And this is the good thing about science, is that you never know where that methodology is going to take you.
One of the biggest things right now is truly the cost. We're trying to reduce the cost that it takes to grow the cells in cell culture systems. We're currently working with multiple cell lines, so we're working with a cell line derived from rainbow trout. We're also going to be working with a cell line derived from sea bass in the near future, and then another species of fish called bluegill. We use microbes to create fish proteins that we then give to fish cells that tell the fish cells to start growing and dividing. So one of the advantages of our research is because we're using microbes to produce those proteins, we can do it at a much lower cost than what's traditionally done, which is using animal systems to produce those signaling molecules. The research that we're doing will be of great interest to companies, startups, and researchers who are already creating the three-dimensional pieces of meat. I'm always a little hesitant to make predictions about when I think these products are coming to market, so I rely on the startup companies that are working in this field and producing these kind of proof of concept and pilot scale projects. And many of them predict that they'll be selling to restaurants within the next 2 to 3 years. Broader availability will be probably, I would say, 5 to 10 years. And the reason why I say a bit longer is because there's not really anything like this on the market. So there's no easy comparable product to say, oh yeah, we can follow that exact regulatory framework. This is something entirely new, so it will require some new legislation, probably all across the world before the products can really,
I think, well, extremely hot temperatures continue to threaten the world's cocoa production. Researchers are racing to find ways to grow the crop under more stable conditions.
Ted Linder takes a closer look at how lab-grown cocoa could help bolster chocolate supplies in the future.
Bad news for chocolate lovers. A growing number of scientists say the worsening effects of human-caused climate change are creating hostile conditions in rainforests where cocoa beans grow. Cocoa trees are abundant in regions of West Africa and South America, but while these crops like a warm climate, dramatically hotter temperatures are drying out the land.
And that has led to massive drops in yield around the world in cocoa.
It's unfortunately causing cocoa prices to skyrocket. To combat the climate-fueled issues, researchers at the company California Cultured have devised a way to grow cocoa inside a lab. Using a technique that involves placing cocoa bean cells in sugar water, the team is able to get the cells to reach maturity in about a week.
Take a cutting of the cocoa bean, put them onto plates, and we trick basically the cocoa cells to grow and divide. And after a certain level of growth, we're able to harvest that and to transform that into chocolate.
Strategies like this could help ease market tensions in the future, especially as the demand for chocolate rises. The National Confectioners Association reports chocolate sales in the U.S. and Europe were greater than $25 billion last year.
We're basically developing the underlying technology that you could actually grow chocolate and coffee anywhere in the world without some of these exploitative or destructive practices.
California Cultured is aiming to sell its lab-grown chocolate products next year. Ted Linder, Fox News.
Coffee is a crucial part of a lot of people's days worldwide. More than 600 billion cups are consumed every year. And to make sure it never runs out, scientists in Finland are shaking up the industry in the lab. CBS News' Ian Lee has more.
For many folks, the day starts here, getting that coffee hit to get going. While the beans traditionally come from tropical regions, scientists in Nordic Finland are generating Java in the lab.
We skip the farming part and we use plant cell cultures instead.
Researchers are using cellular agriculture to create coffee cells, which are transferred to bioreactors to produce biomass. In layman's terms, they're using science to make beanless brews they say smell and taste almost like coffee.
Not like, of course, 100%. It tastes a combination of different types of coffees.
It's an everyday cup of joe alternative as climate change threatens coffee plants around the globe.
Increasing temperatures, but also more erratic rainfall and increased drought.
Scientists say lab-grown coffee doesn't need pesticides or fertilizers and reduces greenhouse gas emissions as well.
You can cut on the transport requirements because you can locally produce.
Researchers are looking to get regulatory approval so people can start sipping lab lattes